1. This happened when I was in middle school. You know, back in the days of wired headphones, so about 2011 or something. I'm a 24-year-old male, and I've been diabetic since I was about 4 years old, and I use a continuous glucose monitor and an insulin pump. I had an IEP, so all my teachers were told about it and that I would need my insulin pump in class, that it might make noise, and I might have to pull it out of my pocket and mess with it if I needed insulin. Or I might need to drink a juice pouch. And I was able to do so at my discretion. We had one teacher who was a complete hard-ass for no reason. She was notorious for making kids cry during presentations. She even told one girl who wanted to be a doctor to find a cure for cancer, because her little sister had childhood cancer, that she would need to actually be smart to do that while chuckling to herself. Let a kid dream, man. We were like 12 years old. As you can imagine, she was also at war with technology. And on a side note, these days I use my phone to check my glucose and give myself an insulin bolus. I can't imagine being a kid today and dealing with a teacher like that, when the lines are blurred and your smartphone is actually a life-saving medical device. But anyway, if you're not familiar with insulin pumps, the kind I use has a little tube that connects the pump which has the insulin to my body, which needs the insulin. The teacher also liked to be weirdly obtuse about things. Instead of being like other teachers and simply saying something like, "No cell phones in class, put it on my desk," which would allow me to remind them it's an insulin pump, and they'd actually say something like, "That's right, my bad." She would instead try to talk abstractly about what she wanted to happen while walking around the room. So this particular day, she kept alluding to students listening to music in class, that you should be careful what you do because she can see it, that us kids think we're so sneaky, but the adults know what we're up to. I obviously wasn't listening to music, so I figured she'd seen someone with headphones in the room. And the next thing I know, she has snuck up behind me with scissors. It took me a good moment to realize what exactly had happened, because I was astonished. I was used to teachers thinking I had a cell phone or about my pump beeping during an exam, but no one had ever touched it before, much less cut my life-sustaining tube. I was actually sitting with my mouth agape and she turned to me. Now that she was at the front of the class again and said something along the lines of, "Mr. Wonderly, care to share what tunes are more important than listening to class?" I had at this point put together that she thought I was listening to music. She thought she cut my headphone wires. I replied, "Just the sound of my thoughts while I've still got any, since that was my insulin pump." She had to let me go to my locker to get my cell phone to call my mom to bring me a new infusion set. My parents insisted no cell phones until high school. But my mom was also scared with me being TD1 and too dyslexic to remember a phone number, and wanted me to be easily able to call her, so she got me a $15 Walmart phone and put minutes on it. And now I feel old. Then I just waited in the front office for her. She worked from home and drove like a bat out of hell. She was so angry. I don't ever want to see her that angry again in my life. It took 10 years off me and I wasn't even in trouble. The teacher had to apologize to me, and all the teachers got some more disability accommodation training or something. Yes, she knew I had a pump. I had an IEP, and my teachers were given the information they needed to know about my diabetes. Even still, a lot of non-diabetics just don't get it, or they forget. It would happen a lot, and teachers would ask for my phone if they saw me messing with it under the desk. Really, I was going through a thing and embarrassed about being diabetic, so I would often try to hide it, so I get how they thought I had a phone. But a simple reminder it's a pump was enough for every other teacher. Yes, she really did get close to me. I was facing the front of the room to look at the projector screen and to take notes. She snuck up behind me from the back of the room where she was lecturing us from and reached her arm down towards me with the scissors. I didn't notice her doing that. Kids used to keep their iPod or whatever in their pocket and then run their headphones up under their shirt. It sometimes left a little bit of wire peeking out from their pocket to get to their shirt. That's where she cut the pump, down at my waist. In terms of her apology, it wasn't too bad. We had a meeting with her, the principal, the assistant principal, and a lady from the special education office, plus me and my parents. She said she was sorry for her actions and that she shouldn't have treated me that way, and she hopes I don't grow up to expect people to act like that towards me. She forgot I had a pump and I didn't feel like she was making an excuse. She was saying she should have been more mindful and it was her fault and that I did nothing wrong. She also said I was brave and calm in the face of adversity, stuff like that. And then she apologized to my mom and dad for frightening them, and for any costs. She offered to pay for it, but they declined. They wanted all the teachers to get more education about kids with diabetes, and the school had like a nurse diabetes educator or someone come in to talk to the teachers. My parents didn't sue her at the school, as you might be thinking. No, she wasn't fired. Yes, I still had to be in her class, and I did have extra supplies kept in the nurse's office. But I also just really wanted my mom in that moment because I was a kid. This was a tiny school and did a lot of backwards things. They mishandled my learning disability as well. And one year, one of my teachers was surprised my dad, who has mild cerebral palsy, and thought it must be so tough for me having to deal with that, and would talk to him like he was 5 during student-teacher conferences. He's an engineer. When my mom showed up, I was sitting in the office waiting for her. I think it took her like 15 minutes to get there post-phone call. She asked me if I was okay and checked out the damage that was done. I could tell she was mad, not with me, obviously. She walked straight up to the receptionist and asked where the teacher was, and they phoned the classroom and had my teacher come to the office. The principal also came out. My mom ripped her a new one, but she didn't yell, though I honestly think that made it more terrifying that she was very collected. I don't remember word for word, but basically she said that removing my insulin pump was a violation of my IEP, not to mention that it is a medical device and an extension of my body which is keeping me alive, and that she would have the audacity to damage life-saving medical equipment was reckless and criminal, that type 1 diabetes is no joke and takes lives, that she should count herself lucky she didn't damage the pump itself, and she let her know how expensive they are and everything they had to do to get me one. She's had years of practice having to argue to take food into places they don't let you take outside food, or in the airport that I can't take my pump through scanners, etc. She was very practiced at putting the fear of God into people, but in a way that they can't turn it on her, saying she's being disruptive. She took me home for the rest of that day. 2. This happened a few years ago, but I was reminded of it recently. The place I live in is both strangely suburban and rural at the same time. It's 30 minutes from a major city, but completely forested, which means there is tons of wildlife: deer, raccoons, rabbits, possum, coyote, cougar, and important for this story, black bears. Everyone in the neighborhood knows not to put out garbage cans too early, because the bears will knock them over and drag the garbage around. Because of my schedule, I had to put them out the night before. But I had bungee cords to keep them shut and always put my cat's litter on top of the garbage. Weird fact. Bears hate the smell of cat urine. I don't know, but it's worked for years. My cats never got tipped. A few years ago, a young couple moved in next door. Their front yard area is unfortunately the Bear Highway, and trash gets dragged through it regularly. Annoying, but I figure it's the price you pay for living in the forest. But their yard is covered in something like ivy and difficult for me to walk on. A few weeks after they move in, I get an angry call that a bear dumped my trash through their yard, and I had to come clean it now. I was home that day and went to go clean it up. I thought it was weird, though, because they never messed with my cans before. I was cleaning them thinking, yep, there's my takeout containers from the other day, there's my Starbucks cup, there's the peelings from dinner a few nights ago, etc. But then I started finding things I didn't recognize, like Keurig cups. We don't have a machine. Wrappers for things I know no one here eats, bones from a chicken carcass. And what finally made me go, oh hell no, a bag of spoiled diapers. This was not my garbage, and the new neighbors just had a new baby. Whose garbage do you think it was? Then another neighbor told me what she saw while I was cleaning. We are surrounded by nosy, gossipy neighbors. You can't see them, but that doesn't mean they aren't watching. Creepy, but sometimes works to my advantage. Apparently, the new neighbors hadn't gotten their garbage service activated yet. so they waited until we put ours out, then stuffed their trash in. They did not bother to restrap the can shut, so instead of smelling like kitty litter, our trash now smelled like chicken and baby shit, which the bears appeared to love and spilled our trash, then dragged it into the new neighbor's yard, which they demanded I clean up. I was pissed, but cleaned up what trash could have come from my household. I left the bag of dirty diapers. My schedule has changed now, so I can put my cans out the night before the men come, or I just skip a week. Funniest part to me was the bears dragged a bunch of trash into the neighbor's yard one week, and they called to yell at me that my trash was in their yard. I had just gotten a COVID booster and was feeling awful, but felt a touch better hanging up than texting them a picture showing all my trash cans partly full and still sitting in the secure fenced area they live in most of the week. It had just snowed too, so it was clear the cans hadn't been disturbed, except for the snow I dumped off the top to open them. Oh, and for anyone wondering, I've had leg, ankle, and foot surgeries that make it very hard for me to walk on uneven ground, but I climbed into the Navy's IV to clean up my trash. 3. Some things to know beforehand, and that is that this happened around 2003. This also happened to my cousin, and he is very proud of this story. Now, my cousin was wearing a shirt featuring Stifler from the movie American Pie, as he loves the American Pie movies and will quote it whenever he gets a chance. Now on to the story. My cousin went with his friends to a local restaurant known for letting you eat after you park your vehicle. His friends just had their order taken, and he opted for a soup and salad bar as a side himself. He had just gotten up to go to the bar when our titular Karen appears to spread her presence everywhere. So as he was walking to the bar, he heard her yell, "Excuse me," but ignored her as he had no idea she was calling for him. So he continued on, unaware that Karen had targeted him, and grabbed his salad and took it back, once again ignoring Karen. Then he went for another trip to grab a bowl of soup and again ignored Karen. Now, when he grabbed his bowl of soup, he was stopped this time by Karen attempting to trip him and knock him and his soup over. When he recovered, he looked at her and yelled, "What the fuck are you doing, lady?" She growled back, "Then don't ignore customers when they need you." He started to say that he didn't work there when Karen saw his shirt and screeched, "How dare you wear a shirt like that at work? And how dare your effing manager allow that?" Now my cousin got confused and said, "Lady, I don't work here, and the next time you try and spill my soup bowl, I guarantee you will end up wearing it." This must have triggered a meltdown in Karen, or short-circuited her already weak brain. And she said, "Of course you work here, you're carrying food to a table." She then got a smile like, "I got you now," when my cousin said, "That's because, and stick with me, it's an open effing salad bar for you to get your own plate." Now this is where Karen accepted her mistake and let him on his way, right? Well, halfway right. As she then said, "Well, even if you don't work here, you owe me a soup and salad plate to apologize for being so rude to me." My cousin, having a genius idea to quote Stifler and get some revenge, said, "You're right, I'll be right back." He returned to the soup and salad bar, got a new bowl, and took the long way around to his table, bypassing the Karen, and told his friends he'll be right back again, and returned to the soup and salad bar. This time all he grabbed was a spoon, and returned to the Karen and gave her the spoon. She was upset and said, "Just a spoon, seriously? And what do you suggest I eat with just a spoon?" He then looked at her and said, "Here's a new idea for you. I got you a spoon so you can eat my ass." Then he walked back to his table while hearing Karen screaming at everyone. Later, when it was time to go, they asked for the check. When the waiter dropped off the check, he noticed my cousin's shirt and got a smile as he told my cousin and his friends about the lady. Apparently, she tried to get him fired by going up front to complain about the rude customer wearing an American Pie shirt who swore at her. She caused such a commotion that the manager came out to talk with her. He told her he was waiting until she left to tell the employees about this, to not embarrass her in public. He then told her he has heard a lot of complaints about her, and that the lady was then banned from being served there again. My cousin and his friends then left a generous tip and went out to enjoy their day with a new story to tell. 4. I work at a crematorium. Now, this crematorium has memorial gardens. My job is sell the sites, administration, and customer service. I like to think I'm pretty good at it. The figures definitely show an upward trend since I started 4 months ago. But this crematorium also has a cemetery out front. The division is the car park, where there are council signs giving the name of the cemetery. People constantly call or walk in asking about sites or maintenance or help finding grandma in the cemetery. All I can do is explain that the council controls the cemetery side, maintenance, burials, memorials, and records, and give them their office number to call. If they're nice and the inquiry is quick, I'll do it for them. Usually for the nice old ducks looking to visit a friend they haven't been to visit in years. But it's definitely difficult to gauge whether they're talking about the memorial gardens or the cemetery. Especially over the phone, since trying to figure out where to start asking questions is hard for me being autistic. I can only desperately hope I don't seem rude. There is one particular middle-aged woman who doesn't seem to get it, despite multiple explanations. This lady wants to put her mother's ashes with her father's. But since I don't work for the cemetery, I can't help her. I've directed her to the council a few times, but last week she came back in to ask why we hadn't put her mother's ashes into the wall niche yet. And again, I tried to explain, and she just started going off. About my tone, about my lack of professionalism, about how disrespectful I'm being.
How old are you?
Sorry?
I asked how old are you?
28.
You're too young for this job. I bet you haven't even lost anyone in your life. No wonder you're so damn disrespectful.
I'm getting angry and loud, since it's so fresh. Well, actually, I lost my father 6 months ago. His memorial happens to be here in the gardens. The gardens that I work in, not the cemetery. I don't work for the cemetery.
Where's your manager? If you people don't do your jobs, I'm going to call the police. You just better do your fucking job or I'll take legal action. It's been weeks. You don't know how to treat people. It's disgusting how you're holding my mother's ashes hostage.
Look, I completely understand that. It's horrible that you haven't been able to lay her ashes to rest and say goodbye, but I really can't help you. And my manager is off-site at the moment, but I'll give you his number.
I must say, your tone has been completely disrespectful. You sound like you don't give a damn.
I write my manager's direct number on a business card. Oh, I'm sorry. I have autism, so that's probably why. I truly don't mean to sound. To which she responded by using a slur that started with R. She snatched the paper out of my shaking hand before storming out the door. My anxiety levels were absolutely through the roof. We received emails and calls of complaint from 3 different family members so far. I'm guessing she's telling them all to contact us specifically. 5. Server context: I'm a 27-year-old female, trans, and my girlfriend is 22 and cis. Her being cis doesn't really have much to do with it, but my being trans does. My girlfriend, Sally, for the sake of anonymity, comes from a predominantly Jewish family. All her life she was grown to follow the virtues and tenets of Jewish lifestyle as dictated by the Bible. However, a few years ago we met, and after a year or so of soul-searching, therapy, experiencing life, and seeing people around her who weren't religious, she realized that this lifestyle didn't fit her either. So far so good. Until she decided to come out to her family, and her dad in particular. Now her dad is the sort of person who has a lot of emphasis on family values and keeping with tradition. In parts in a sense of taking pictures of everything she and her brothers ever do, sometimes even directing them to pretend as if they were still doing things to take candid photos of them. And as someone who is in the religious world, seeing his daughter not only come out to him as queer, demisexual, and demi-romantic, but dating me, a trans woman, did not go so well. He started with denial outright, still is to an extent, calling me a frog she has to swallow, actual quote, and a wild romantic fantasy, again actual quote, alongside other stuff like misgendering me on a regular basis and thinking I'm some mentally deranged creep that's abusing his daughter or something. He was more or less sure that this was just a short phase and she would soon enough return to being the good Jewish daughter he wanted her to be. Evidently, she didn't in the past 3 years, give or take, and he's been getting more and more irate over it. From sending her passive-aggressive messages about how he misses her and wants her to come home more, to criticizing her about hanging out with bad company. Bad company, in this case, a group of tabletop nerds through which we met, and blatantly showing disapproval at everything she does that doesn't fit his image of a perfect daughter. The peak of it was a few weeks back. She was moving to dorms in university, which is a short bus ride from where I live, so I offered to come over and help her carry boxes. I knew that her father was going to drive her, but frankly, I wasn't there to meet him. I was there to help her move boxes, and I thought that me helping would get him out of there faster, for some errands he apparently had to do. I was also told that he most likely wouldn't be able to help her much due to age, so I was more than happy to come help expedite the process. Now, credit where it's due, she didn't communicate with him that I was there until they were relatively close. This is not a defense of his actions, but an advocacy for clear and proper communication between everyone. Then again, I can't really blame her for not talking, seeing as how every time she tried, it only led to a brick wall where she was gaslit about how wrong she is. Which brings us to how he actually reacted. From making the whole thing about him, claiming she and I were setting him an ambush, actual term he used, to deciding that he would rather go hide in some unseen corner so he doesn't have to look at me. The man, who's over 50, decided the best course of action is to literally hide like a child, while his daughter has to move several dozen kilograms of assorted stuff to a new building and dorm, while I helped her. All while crying to her mom and obviously trying to get her to intervene in his favor. He was literally at the point that he refused to look at me, so he doesn't have to acknowledge I exist. Of course, if he had stuck around, most likely all he'd have done was just take pictures of her moving boxes. Age or not, his priority was more on taking photos than actually doing what he can to help. And frankly, to some extent, I get it. Any parent would have some manner of shock or confusion when their child comes out to them as queer, especially in more religious communities. My parents had to take the time to process this too when it happened. But where my folks actually took the time to accept this and love me for who I am, he not only refuses to change, but also places all the blame on her. He sent her an apology the other day, after her therapist had to reach out to him about what happened and talk about it. And his apology could be summed up more or less in, "I'm sorry for how I reacted to this thing you did wrong and you were not okay doing it." And you know what? I'm not mad that he misgenders me, or calls me a frog, or thinks I'm a creep. I have enough mental maturity to say that while it's not nice of him, I'm not going to take offense to the thoughts of what someone else thinks. What does piss me off is his entitlement around his daughter and how he pushes her away. It's not about me. It was never about me. It's the actions of a man who, in trying to maintain this perfect image of family in his mind, goes out of his way to belittle, needle, criticize, and demean almost everything she does that he doesn't approve of. Someone who'd rather obsess with taking photos and pictures of his daughter the way he thinks she should be, rather than just accept that this is his daughter. I love my girlfriend. I love her to the ends of the earth. I will stand by her and support her no matter what she does, be it university work, perhaps one day being a mother. It's just a shame I can't say the same for her actual father. Hey everybody, Hellfreezer here, and thank you very much for listening to Idiots in the Wild, episode 86. And thank you very much to everybody who allowed me to use their stories in this video. If you could very kindly please press the like button and share the video around with friends and family. I would be very appreciative if you did so. And if you also look in the description, it's right down there, on the bottom, you will find links to all sorts of Hellfreezer-related stuff. You might find something you like. Okay, let's see. Let's move right along to Hellfreezer's question of the day. And today's question is... Right, I'm looking for inspiration. I have things to bake. I just need motivation. I was looking at banana bread recipes the other day. Doesn't look too hard, actually. But what are your favorite simple recipes? Like just, a few ingredients that don't require a massive amount of prep time. Be they savory or dessert, I'm open to both. that you make on a semi-regular basis. You don't have to give me the full recipes, just give me the name of it, I can look them up. I understand, family secrets and all, you may not want to share family recipes. But I look forward to reading your ideas in a comment below. Then hopefully it'll give me motivation. Okay, with that, I'm going to head off for now. So until next time, thank you very much for listening, and take very good care of yourself.